Madison Sterling had planned every detail of her wedding down to the last rose petal. The grand ballroom of the Riverside Manor sparkled with crystal chandeliers, white orchids adorned every table, and a string quartet played softly in the corner. Everything had to be perfect. After all, she was marrying Marcus Johnson, the successful CEO whose family name opened doors across the city. Madison had never met Marcus's mother. He'd told her his parents lived overseas, managing business ventures in Europe. She hadn't questioned it much. Wealthy families often had complicated arrangements. "Champagne, miss?" An elderly black woman in a server's uniform approached with a tray. Madison barely glanced at her, waving her hand dismissively. "Not now. And make sure the ice sculptures don't start melting. This heat is ridiculous." "Yes, ma'am," the woman said quietly, moving away. As the reception progressed, Madison grew increasingly anxious. The photographer was running late, the cake topper was slightly crooked, and to her horror, she noticed one of the waitstaff, that same elderly woman, speaking with some of the guests near Marcus's family section. "What is she doing?" Madison hissed to her maid of honor, Jessica. "Those are Marcus's relatives from out of town. I specifically said only senior staff should attend that section." Jessica shrugged. "Maybe she's just taking drink orders?" But Madison was already marching over, her white gown swishing dramatically. The elderly woman was smiling warmly at Marcus's uncle, who seemed to be greeting her like an old friend. "Excuse me," Madison interrupted sharply. "You're needed in the kitchen. Immediately." The woman turned to face her, her warm brown eyes meeting Madison's cold stare. "I was just saying hello to, I don't care what you were doing. You're here to serve, not socialize with my guests. Do your job." Marcus's uncle looked uncomfortable. "Madison, perhaps, Uncle Robert, please. I'll handle the staff." Madison's voice was ICE. An hour later, disaster struck in Madison's eyes. The wedding cake, her showpiece, a 5-tier masterpiece covered in edible gold leaf, was being wheeled out. As it passed through the doorway, one of the wheels caught on the threshold. The cart jolted, the elderly waitress rushed forward, steadying the cake with both hands, preventing it from toppling. She carefully helped the pastry chef maneuver it safely to the display table, but Madison only saw what she wanted to see. "You almost ruined my cake," she shrieked, storming over. "How dare you touch it with your careless hands?" "Ma'am, I was trying to help," the woman began gently. "Help? You nearly destroyed a $10,000 cake." Madison's voice carried across the ballroom. Guests began to turn and stare. The elderly woman remained calm, her voice soft but dignified. The wheel caught on the door. "I steadied it so it wouldn't fall. Don't talk back to me." Madison's face flushed red. "Do you know who I am? This is my wedding day, and you're ruining it." "Madison, please." Marcus appeared at her side, his face pale. "Let's not make a scene," she shook him off. "No, Marcus. I've had enough of incompetent staff ruining the most important day of my life." The elderly woman stood quietly, hands clasped in front of her, dignity radiating from her small frame despite the public humiliation, and then Madison did the unthinkable. "You know what?" Madison's voice dropped to a venomous whisper that somehow carried through the now silent ballroom. "Maybe this will teach you to know your place." Her hand flew through the air, the slap echoed like a gunshot, the elderly woman's head turned with the impact, but she didn't cry out. She simply stood there, one hand slowly rising to touch her reddening cheek, her eyes glistening but holding no tears. The ballroom fell into a horrified silence. Marcus's face drained of all color. "Madison, what have you done?" "She deserved it," Madison said, but her voice wavered as she noticed everyone staring at her with shock and disgust. The elderly woman finally spoke, her voice quiet but clear. "I forgive you, child. You don't know what you've done." "How dare you speak to me?" Madison began. "Enough." Marcus's voice boomed through the ballroom, stopping everyone cold. His hands were shaking. "Madison, do you even know who you just hit?" Madison blinked, confused by the raw emotion in his voice. "It's just a waitress, Marcus." "I know you're upset, but, just a waitress?" Marcus's laugh was bitter, almost a sob. "That waitress is my mother." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Madison's face went from red to white in an instant. "What? No, that's impossible. Your mother is in Europe." "You said I lied," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I lied because I knew you'd react exactly like this." The elderly woman, his mother, spoke softly. "Marcus, don't you know, Mom? She needs to hear this." Marcus turned to face the crowd, tears streaming down his face. "My mother, Dorothy Johnson, isn't living in Europe managing businesses. She's been working 3 jobs right here in this city for the past 30 years. She cleaned offices at night, worked as a home health aide during the day, and picked up catering shifts on weekends. All to put me through school." Dorothy's eyes widened. "Marcus, please," but he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "When I got my scholarship to business school, she worked double shifts to help with living expenses. When I started my first company and it nearly failed, she took out a loan against her tiny house to help me. Everything I am, everything I have, I owe to her. Madison stood frozen, the weight of her actions crashing down on her. But I was ashamed, Marcus admitted, his voice breaking completely. When I started moving in wealthy circles, when I met you and your society friends, I was ashamed of my mom's humble jobs. I was ashamed that she didn't have fancy degrees or designer clothes. So I made up lies. I told you she lived overseas. I created this fake life so you wouldn't judge me. Dorothy finally spoke, her voice gentle despite the red mark on her face. Baby, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Mom. Marcus turned to her, going down on one knee. I'm so sorry. For lying. For hiding you. For being ashamed of the most incredible woman I've ever known. You deserved better than this. You deserve to be honored today, not treated like this. Dorothy helped her son to his feet, cupping his face gently. You are my son, and I love you no matter what. But you need to find someone who will love all of you, including where you came from. She turned to Madison, who stood trembling, mascara running down her face. I don't know what pain made you so hard, child. But I hope someday you find enough love in your heart that you never treat another human being the way you treated me today. Madison opened her mouth, but no words came out. What could she say? Sorry seemed laughably inadequate. Marcus's Uncle Robert stepped forward. Dorothy, let me help you. You shouldn't be working tonight. Other relatives surrounded Dorothy, offering comfort and support. Several of Madison's own guests looked at her with barely concealed disgust. Marcus slowly turned to Madison, and she saw a stranger looking back at her, someone who finally saw her clearly for the first time. Marcus, I didn't know, Madison whispered. I'm so sorry. I was stressed, and you showed me exactly who you are, Marcus said quietly. My mother worked her fingers to the bone so I could have opportunities. She sacrificed everything. And you hit her because you thought she was just a waitress. As if being a waitress makes someone less than human. As if working an honest job is something shameful. Please, Marcus. I made a mistake. I'll apologize to her properly. You judged her. You dismissed her. You verbally abused her throughout the evening, and then you physically assaulted her. In front of everyone. Marcus's voice was eerily calm now. And you did it because you thought you could. Because you thought she was beneath you. Madison reached for his hand, but he stepped back. Madison, I've been lying to you, and that's on me. But tonight, you showed me the truth. You showed me that you value people based on their job titles and bank accounts. That you think it's acceptable to abuse people you consider staff. He shook his head slowly. I can't marry someone with such cruelty in their heart. Marcus, no. Madison's voice rose in panic. You can't just cancel our wedding. We signed contracts, sent announcements. Your company's merger with my father's firm, is that what this is really about? Marcus asked quietly. The business merger? Madison froze. No. I love you. Do you? Or do you love what I represent? The success story. The CEO who can elevate your social standing. He glanced around the ballroom. All of this, the crystal, the orchids, the gold leaf cake, you planned a wedding, Madison. But did you ever plan for a marriage? Dorothy placed a gentle hand on her son's arm. Marcus, the baby, don't make any rash decisions. You two need time to talk to Mom, she hit you. Marcus's voice cracked. She hit you. And she didn't even apologize until she found out who you were. That tells me everything I need to know. He was right, Madison realized with horrifying clarity. She'd been ready to double down, to have Dorothy fired, until she learned the truth. Even now, her first instinct had been to worry about contracts and business deals, not to express genuine remorse. I think, Marcus said slowly, removing his wedding band before he'd even properly worn it, we need to end this. Here. Tonight. Gasps rippled through the crowd. You're leaving me at the altar? Madison's voice was shrill. No, Marcus corrected. We're already at the reception. And I'm leaving a person I realize I never truly knew, someone who hides cruelty behind a perfect smile. Someone I was enabling by hiding parts of myself I thought you'd reject. He turned to Dorothy. Mom, I'd like you to meet someone. The real me. Not the man who was ashamed of his roots, but your son. The one you raised to treat everyone with dignity and respect. I lost sight of that, but tonight reminded me. Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. Oh, baby. I never wanted you to feel ashamed. I know, Mom. That was my own weakness. He glanced back at Madison one final time. I hope you find happiness, Madison. And I hope you learn that a person's worth isn't measured by their job title or their bank account. It's measured by how they treat others, especially those who can't offer them anything in return. The ballroom erupted into chaos as Marcus escorted his mother out through a side door. Madison stood alone at her own wedding, the white dress that had cost $15,000 suddenly feeling like a costume. Jessica approached hesitantly. Madison, what do you want to do? What could she do? Madison looked around at the faces staring at her, some pitying, most judging. She'd spent 6 months planning the perfect wedding, but she'd never thought about what came after. I need to. Madison's voice faltered. I need to apologize. Properly. She gathered her skirts and hurried after Marcus and Dorothy, catching them in the hallway. Several of Marcus's relatives had formed a protective circle around Dorothy. Please, Madison said, her voice small. Please, I need to say something. Dorothy turned slowly. Up close, Madison could see the elegant lines of her face, the strength in her bearing, the wisdom in her eyes. How had she missed it before? Mrs. Johnson, Madison began, her voice shaking. There's no excuse for what I did. None. I was cruel, I was abusive, and I assaulted you. The fact that you're Marcus's mother makes it worse, but honestly, it would have been just as terrible if you were anyone else. She took a breath, tears streaming down her face. I think I've spent so long trying to be perfect, trying to control everything, that I forgot how to be human. I forgot that everyone deserves respect. And I'm so sorry. Dorothy studied her for a long moment. Do you mean that? Or are you just trying to save your wedding? The question hung in the air. Madison realized this was her moment of truth. I think. Madison said slowly, the wedding is over. And maybe it should be. Because you're right, I need to figure out why I thought it was okay to treat another person that way. Why my first instinct was to lash out instead of showing kindness. She turned to Marcus. And you deserve someone better. Someone who would have been proud to meet your mother, who would have honored her for her sacrifices. I'm not that person. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 6 months later, Madison sat in a small community center, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, a far cry from her usual designer wardrobe. She was volunteering at a food bank, something that would have been unthinkable to the woman she'd been on her wedding day. Can you help me with these boxes? An elderly volunteer asked. Of course, Madison smiled, moving to assist. The past months had been humbling. The wedding disaster had made headlines in the society pages. Her father's company merger fell through. Many of her so-called friends had distanced themselves from the scandal. But in losing everything she thought mattered, Madison had found something more valuable, perspective. She'd started therapy. She'd volunteered. She'd reached out to Dorothy multiple times to apologize, though Dorothy had kindly but firmly declined to meet with her, saying she needed space. Madison understood. Some wounds took time to heal, and some relationships couldn't be repaired. Marcus had sold his company and moved to another state. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that he and his mother had grown closer than ever, and that he was taking time to reconnect with his roots. As for the society crowd she'd once been desperate to impress, most of them had moved on to the next scandal, proving how shallow those connections had really been. You've been a wonderful help, the elderly volunteer said warmly. Same time next week? I'll be here, Madison promised. As she walked out into the afternoon sun, Madison realized she finally understood what Dorothy had meant that terrible night. Her wedding day hadn't been ruined by a waitress or a caught cartwheel. It had been revealed for what it really was, a beautiful facade covering an ugly truth, and while she'd lost Marcus, lost her perfect wedding, lost her social standing, she'd gained something far more important, the chance to become someone worth knowing. 3 years had passed. Madison now worked full-time at a non-profit helping low-income families access education resources. Her life looked nothing like the glittering existence she'd once curated so carefully. One Tuesday afternoon, organizing donations, she heard a familiar voice. Excuse me, do you have any materials for adult learners? Madison's heart stopped. She turned slowly to see Dorothy Johnson standing in the doorway, a warm smile on her face. Mrs. Johnson, Madison breathed. I heard through the grapevine that you'd been doing good work here, Dorothy said gently. I wanted to see for myself. I don't know what to say. Madison felt tears pricking her eyes. Except that I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I mean it. Every day, I think about that night and wish I could take it back. Dorothy stepped closer. Child, I forgave you a long time ago. I just needed to see if you'd truly changed, or if it was just guilt talking. Have I changed? Madison asked, genuinely uncertain. Dorothy looked around the modest office, at the worn furniture and the stacks of donated books, then back at Madison's simple clothing and bare face. You tell me. Are you different because you want something from me? Or are you different because you finally understand? Madison thought about it carefully. I understand now that my wedding day wasn't about love. It was about performance. About proving something to people whose opinions didn't really matter. And in trying to maintain that perfect image, I became someone capable of cruelty. She met Dorothy's eyes. I can't undo what I did. But I can make sure I never become that person again. That's not about earning forgiveness from you or Marcus. It's about being able to look at myself in the mirror. Dorothy smiled, a genuine warmth spreading across her face. That's the answer I was hoping for. How is Marcus? Madison asked quietly. He's happy. Really happy. He's engaged to a wonderful woman, a teacher. She loves him for exactly who he is, roots and all. Dorothy's eyes sparkled. And he told her all about his mama on their first date. Madison felt a bittersweet pang but found herself genuinely smiling. That's wonderful. He deserves that. So do you, Dorothy said gently. Everyone deserves to love and be loved for who they truly are, flaws and all. But first, you have to know who you truly are. As Dorothy prepared to leave, she paused at the door. Madison? Keep doing this work. Not because you're trying to atone for the past, but because you're building a better future. I will, Madison promised. After Dorothy left, Madison sat at her desk for a long moment. She thought about the woman she'd been, obsessed with perfection, willing to hurt others to maintain an image, valuing people based on their usefulness to her. Then she looked around her small office, thought about the families she'd helped, the real connections she'd made. The old Madison would have seen this as failure. The new Madison understood it was something far more valuable. It was real. Her wedding day had been the most humiliating moment of her life. But it had also been the moment everything changed, the moment she was forced to see the person she'd become and decide who she wanted to be instead. Some lessons come wrapped in silk and roses. Others come in the form of a brave woman in a server's uniform, quietly maintaining her dignity while teaching everyone watching what real strength looks like. Madison had finally learned the lesson. And though the cost had been high, a cancelled wedding, a broken relationship, a shattered reputation, she wouldn't trade it for anything, because for the first time in her life, she was becoming someone she could be proud of, not for how things looked from the outside, but for who she was on the inside, and that, she realized, was worth more than all the perfect weddings in the world. Sometimes the worst moment of our lives becomes the catalyst for becoming our best selves. True grace isn't found in crystal chandeliers or gold leaf cakes, it's found in how we treat others when we think no one important is watching. Because everyone is important. Everyone matters. And everyone deserves dignity.